This is AC Lockyer, the professional business guide. I'm a third-generation service business entrepreneur, national champion professional fisherman, and serial entrepreneur. Each week, I'm going to invite some of my friends and other influencers in the business industry to talk about leadership, building sales teams, and other topics to help you win and find your true north.
All right, so guys, this is AC Lockyer, and this is my industry fireside chat that I do every week. Started doing this with the whole COVID-19, people just having to shelter in place at their homes and their businesses declining. So I decided I'd start getting on once a week and just encouraging everybody. And so every week I've tried to have a different person on so that we can look at the COVID-19 and the situation it's created through the lens of different experts, people encouraging people, whether it be marketing or, Colene's an HR person, deals with retention and talent and your employees in your company and hiring the best people. But whatever the expert POV, we've had business coaches on, et cetera, just helping to introduce them to my tribe, but also to have them speak at their expertise into this particular moment. So Colene, tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you got to this place where you're at today with this new book that you've released, and brag about that a little bit.
Oh, thank you. Well, I've known AC for, how do we say AC, like 30 years?
Yeah, it's almost 30 years. And we're both, by the way, something I wanted to tell everybody is we're both FFA leaders, Future Farmers of America.
Yes, so. That's right. That's right. I was raised on a farm in Groveland, Florida. So I love that time, and I'm very proud of that. Very proud to be a farmer starter. And so, yes, FFA gave me a lot of leadership background, parliamentary procedure. I sang in the talent show. So, great. I have great fond memories. Yes. So what got me here? Well, I went into HR and worked in the talent acquisition, which we call employees, finding them and retaining them. And so after 20 years of doing it and looking at why we were losing talent, I went out and started working for myself. I have a public speaking degree, an organizational communication degree. So I do speak and train around the country, a lot of HR issues. And so today I did a Zoom meeting. It was really fun with HR people in Pensacola. So there were 80 people registered, I think 60 on the call. And so I did a live presentation. It was fun. So why I started working for myself is because I want to help organizations find and retain their talent. And I watched people that I worked very hard to find. I was on LinkedIn as a recruiter. I had to go and find them, and then they would come in, and then they would go out, and I was frustrated by that. Mm-hmm. I was working hard to find this engineer, and because of leadership or the culture, they would leave. And so I put all that into a book, and you guys heard a lot of that talk. And so that talk expanded, that I got to finally, or we got to do at because right after that it closed down, like middle of March. I've had 4 months of traveling, just shut down.
We were almost like the last convention.
I know. Yeah. And it was awesome, by the way. You guys did a great job. You really do treat your people very well. And so loved being there and meeting your people. And I just saw, I think, Jim pop up. That's good to see him. So I wrote the book because I want to help organizations with what I learned as an HR professional. Mm-hmm. And a lot to why people stay at a job. You can simplify it, but it has a lot to do with leadership. So everything revolves around leadership, right? So there you go.
Yeah, everything. Now, John Maxwell says that everything rises and falls on leadership.
Yes, I've learned a lot from him. So
so go ahead.
I guess tonight you maybe want to see how I can help your people. Now you're in the middle of it. I watch you on Facebook. I watch what you post, and I have to say I agree with a lot of it.
But not all of it.
No. I mean, I don't comment on a lot of things. I have an opinion. I am definitely my father's daughter. I have a lot of things, but I keep those opinions to myself.
Yes.
One of the things you said is thank you so much, government. Now people are not going to go look for a job until July because stay home and get $875 a week here.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm like, I get that. I totally get that. So that was one thing I saw you said, and I'm like, he's right. So anyways.
Well, and that's, you know, a neat little segue there is the fact that, you know, I travel abroad a lot, and I have businesses overseas that are part of our network, and I also own a distribution company distributes our products over in the UK, and I've watched how other countries work, and they're very, very socialistic. And in England, you almost have to pay a roof cleaner 65 to 70,000 pounds a year to get them to where after taxes they clear more than they could just living on the dole. And so it takes anybody that might have, you know, gone out and gotten a job for $35,000 to $50,000 a year doing laboring. It makes no sense for them to go out and look for a job because the government will pay you. The government in the UK pays you $25,000 a year to do nothing, live on the dole. And then they ignore, you're not supposed to have a side hustle, but if you have a side hustle, they will kind of ignore it up to $25,000 a year. And so you can work under the table doing that. So you basically get to have a $50,000 a year tax-free income in the UK. So for you to attract people to come to work for you as a laborer doing roof cleaning or window cleaning or any of the home services type of businesses in the UK, you have to offer enough that by the time they do the math and they clear the taxes, they make more than they could just sitting at home doing a little side hustle living off the government. And so that's what this reminded me of, is when they said the government was going to come in and pay $600, the federal government, on top of whatever your state's unemployment was. In Florida, that made it, you know, $825 a week that you could make sitting at home. And you didn't have to go out, and because normally when you file for unemployment, you have to turn in your homework and everything and show them where you've been out trying to find a job and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, and all the way till July, you don't have to worry about turning in any homework. They don't expect you to find a job. So that felt an awful lot like socialism to me, and very, very familiar to what we go through overseas. And it was a little disappointing. I know our government's trying to help. Unemployment right now is at an all-time high. We've never in this country, since they've been keeping records, ever seen unemployment. Now, Colleen, this could be a flash in the pan, and a lot of people could go back to work in a month, or some of this might end up lasting. What's your kind of mindset on that?
Well, I think the number at 22 million, is that right? That I heard today. Maybe it's because I'm an optimist, but I believe it will take some time. But if they don't continue unemployment, because, you know, they were only in Florida, you can only get 200, I think it's 75 or 25, whatever you said.
Yeah.
If you can get it, because I know people who still have not got it and they've applied. So they're just overloaded, right?
Right.
So they're going to give up on that and they're going to go back to work. Hopefully that's what's going to happen, right?
Yes.
So my feeling is, because of the administration, because it is ran by a business person, that it will turn around. That is my thought on that. And so what are we doing in the meanwhile as HR? Well, we can work on ourselves. We can work inside of our organization. We can take the time to develop our leaders. If you're that leader, I know you have individually owned organizations, but develop yourself. Be the person that people want to work for. So now is the time to up the ante. You know, be the CEO, learn those leadership skills that you teach them and want them to learn, so that people want to work for you. So that's what we've done. We've learned how to do Zoom meetings, and we're working on our content. We're We're doing stuff that we didn't do because we were traveling all over the country, right? So this is the time to do that. I know you're telling your people to do that.
Oh yeah, yeah, and you know, even if you're an owner operator and you only have 2 or 3 employees, act like a CEO. It's called role playing. It's a really important talent to develop, or skill to develop. You get talents, you develop skills. But I remember when I used to tournament fish. Before I had any sponsors, I just put all the logos on the boat of all the products I liked, you know? And so I just acted the part of a fully sponsored, totally anteed up professional angler. And eventually I got other businesses and different sponsors wanting to sponsor me, and trying to compete with those logos that were on my boat that I wasn't getting anything from. You know, sometimes you just have to decide you're going to be something and just go ahead and step out and do that. And especially when it comes to leadership, you know, if you act like a CEO, if you act like your business is an asset, if you act like you've got a team of people surrounding you, making you better, guess what? You'll start acting like that. It'll become part of you.
And Al, you've been a great example of that. I mean, you've built several businesses. You act the part, but you also have a great mind, a great marketing mind. And I know you invest in yourself, and you're encouraging your people to invest in them. You know, there's a great book by Marshall Goldsmith. I know you guys have heard it. What got you here won't get you there. And it's all about those soft skills that we're not aware that we have that are keeping people from us. Interrupting, not having eye contact. They're simple things, right? John talks about them in their book. I talk about them in my book. You know, those skills, let's work on developing ourselves so we are the choice when people want to come back to work. We cannot control what's going on out there, but we can control what we're working on inside. It's time to work on yourself and your company.
Yeah. So, you know, certainly before we finish up tonight, I want to give you a chance to hold up your book and talk about your book, tell us where you can get it, and, you know, maybe type in the chat a link for people to get to and all that kind of stuff. But your book really breaks down some very specific things that you can do to retain talent in your organization, key players, team members, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, why don't you talk about your 3 favorite chapters in the book, or your 3 favorite techniques that you have when we talk about retaining. By the way, I love the cover on it. I really love the black and white and then the one red chair. I think if I was walking through a bookstore, it would really stand out to me. And it's retention with the red chair and then the black chairs. And it really calls out. So I wanted to tell you, it really looks great. But what would be those 3 key things that you would tell people right now, especially in light of COVID-19, to keep the employees that maybe you furloughed, or maybe that you took the PPP and you kept those employees, you're trying to keep them busy? What would be the 3 things that people should focus on?
I think one of the things we need to focus on for sure is keeping in contact with them. And I'll share a story. My sister-in-law moved down to West Palm to work in a very lucrative family business where they sell tile for floors and walls, and you know, West Palm, we're talking a lot of money. And so she's literally there 3 weeks, and they furlough her. So she goes down to $200 a week. That's all they're going to pay her. She can't get on unemployment. Do you know how many times she's heard from them? They don't even contact her to say, how are you doing, Lori? You moved all the way here from Tallahassee to take this job.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Are you surviving?
Wow.
Furlough people, and you had to lay off people, and you want them to come back. Communicate with them. Let them know you care. I mean, one of the things that John says is people want 3 things from their boss. They want to know, does he care or she care for me?
Right.
Do they value me? Do they care for me? Do they value me? And can they help me? Can they help me get to the next level? I mean, that all comes from the leader. That is a simple thing to do. Just contact your people. Be in contact with them.
And that's a Zig Ziglar thing. You know, Zig used to say that, that you want to make sure that you help your employees, your team member, achieve their life's goals and dreams. You know, his famous saying was, help enough people get what they want, they will help you get what you want. And so, yeah, you want to communicate with those people. Wow, I can't believe that. Did you hold up your finger and say they've contacted her once? Yeah, once.
And so she's alone down there by herself. She doesn't know anybody. And so we have to put ourselves, right now, I know we're all frustrated. Your business owners are frustrated. I'm frustrated. I lost 4 months of speaking and coaching. Well, not coaching, but traveling and speaking.
Right.
But at least I want to pour into other people. And this is the time to use the Zig Ziglar or use the John Maxwell and pour into other people without asking for anything. Just see how you can help. Come alongside them. If you're a believer, come alongside them because you're a believer. But make sure your people are okay. If they need food, I mean, some people need food, and your people need to know you care about them. The basic needs, right? I mean, it's a biblical basic need. So I would say that be the person that you would want as your boss. That would be the number one thing. And so that goes back to, you know, my 5 things I call retention architecture. And one of those is called talent development. So if you still have a staff and you're just sitting around because you can't go out and clean anything, which, can you guys go out and do that? Are you an essential?
We are an essential business, but because people have kind of a shutdown mindset, many of our people's business has declined. It's kind of funny, Colleen. We've got about 1/3 of our people are as busy as all get out, busier than a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest. And then we got 1/3 of our people that are like, it's 15 to 30% slower, but I'm doing okay. You know, we're blessed. And you got about 1/3 of our people that are just like, the sky is falling. They're freaking out. Their business is just shut down on them. And it has to do with where they are regionally. Also, too, it has to do with how prepared they were, how much momentum they had going into this, how hard of workers they are, what kind of work ethic they have. Some people are like, but AC, I'm trying really, really, really hard. I'm like, yeah, now, but you know, you're desperate now. You know, it's like walking out into the apple field, you know, in May and whacking the apple tree with a 2x4. You're not going to get any apples. You know, there's a lot of preparation. And, you know, it goes back to our agricultural roots. We understand that as farmers, ag people. I was horticulture. You guys actually had a ranch and a farm. But, you know, when you get that result, that fruit, or that, you know, that livestock animal that you can go to market and sell and everything else, it just doesn't happen right away. You got a lot of effort that you have to put into it. So developing your people, you know, I think one of the big pitfalls a lot of people do is they think when they hire somebody, if they don't rock their world in the first week or two, they're like, they're a dud. And I'm like, you know, my dad used to have a saying, and a lot of people say this: better the devil you know than the one you don't. You know, it's real easy to flip and to fire employees, and the next one you get probably isn't going to be any better than the one that you got right now. So a lot of it is talent development. How do you now, with COVID-19 and things a little slower, you know, how do you gain your employees some additional certifications? How do you get them to some leadership events? I know Howard Partridge, the second week of May, is doing his Inner Circle conference completely online. And that's a great opportunity where you couldn't afford to put all of your employees up in a hotel room and jet set them across the country. Have everybody sit down in your office and put up a 50-inch monitor. I have 25 of them in my office, so it's pretty easy. But put up a 50-inch monitor and let everybody watch the Howard Partridge Inner Circle convention, you know, for 3 days. That kind of stuff can be key.
Exactly. One of the things that I'm offering, and this was based on the call with Greater Pensacola SHRM, Society of Human Resource Management, I'm offering a 6-week leadership training. So you can send your leader to me. We'll do a maximum of 10. It's going to be for $300. I offer that to them. I can certainly offer it to you guys. They get my attention for an hour for 6 weeks, and I will send them the material to read, the leadership chapters in my book. So
that's wow. That's great.
That is a cheap way to keep that talent you want to keep, because how you treat them during this time is whether they're going to stay with you when times are looking better.
Well, and it's also a great way to show you that you value them, because you wouldn't take that time to invest in them and develop them if you're just getting ready to toss them. All right, my little chat thing is going off here. Let me pull it off to the side here. Oh, yeah, so Jim Prom said, sign me up. He says, I'll take 6 weeks.
Good, Jim. Hey, well, it's a great way, and we get to interact. And the thing about it is we get to learn from each other. So I've done this type of leadership training online before this ever happened, and great discussions. How do I handle that? You know, and you get to hear from somebody, and I'm guiding the conversation and going, no, you probably don't want to say that as an HR person. So yeah, maybe you shouldn't say that. That probably is not going to go over well.
Towards the end, I'll ask you about that. What are some of the things you don't say?
Well, you guys know in interviews, you certainly don't ask about family. You don't ask about, are you going to have a baby anytime?
That's right.
Are you starting a family? You know, you can't ask any of those. You can't ask medical questions. You can't ask family questions. You can't, you know, you got to stay away from the personal. Now, once they're your employee, you get to know them. That's fine.
Right.
But during the interviewing process, no. And let me tell you, today I shared that initial, when you get your employees back and you're start hiring again, and maybe you're hiring a fresh face, make that first day, week, month, positive. I remember as an HR person going to a job, and after I left the job for 10 years, I went to do this HR job somewhere else, and I was being groomed to be the HR director. And I came home for lunch and I told my husband, I don't know what I just did. So that first impression is really key. You know, make sure they're engaged. You're spending time with them as a leader on that first day. You're getting them training, you know, whatever that is, that's a key. You know, another key you asked me is you've got to resolve your conflict.
Right.
Don't let it be pushed under the rug, whether it's your conflict with one of your employees or your employees are having conflict. People aren't going to tell you that when they leave. They're just going to leave. So address it. Learn to have, resolve conflict. Do it in a manner where people feel valued. Don't be so abrupt about it, but learn those skills. And those are skills that I teach people to do. It's important that you resolve conflict. It's going to happen. It's inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, conflict is a huge thing, and having a great environment at your office is big. Culture and environment's huge. I remember I had a person that I ran into from when I was doing coaching for different companies, and so this person was in administrative bookkeeping and stuff like that. So another one of my clients needed a bookkeeper, and this person had left another client, and I really wanted to hire this person, but I couldn't because I can't hire from my clients. But she had left this other client. This other client was looking for somebody who was a good admin, a good bookkeeper, stuff like that. And they wanted, you know, I gave a good referral, and I said, hey, this person will be able to handle everything at your company, but I said, you're going to have to, you know, really entice her to come to work for you. So, I mean, literally, she came in, she interviewed. I said, hey, could you go ahead and sit up in the lobby a minute? I want to talk to my client for a few minutes and talk about how you might be a good fit here. And they couldn't meet what her salary requirements were, because this is something you might want to talk about, because this becomes a huge HR issue sometimes, especially when you're talking about people who handle money. There was already somebody that was an office manager that for them to attract this accountant, bookkeeper, person who was going to handle the money in the company, they were going to have to pay her more than the office manager that had been there for years. But the office manager had hit a cap. She wasn't growing anymore. She was trusted. She could open the place up. She could close it down, but she wasn't going to grow the company anymore. They didn't want to pay this new person more than the office manager, because that was going to create a conflict. So I looked at this guy, and I knew he kept at least $100,000 cash in his safe in his office. And I said, well, you're gonna have to pay her $10,000 less than what she's worth. I said, I know you got $10,000 in that safe over there. I said, why don't you walk over there, grab $10,000, have it sitting on the table when we invite her back in, and you give that to her as her signing bonus. And so he went and grabbed $10,000 out of his safe, had it on sitting on the table. When she walked back in, he basically said, if you take the job today, that's your signing bonus. I can only pay you X amount of dollars a year, but I'll give you that bonus, which will bring you up stuff for what you're asking. Do you think she said yes?
She did.
Yeah, but they had to avoid that conflict because there was going to be pay inequitability in the ranks with people that were going to see the paychecks that were going.
Right. Well, that's one way of handling it. It avoids having the conversation with the office manager about her lack of growth.
Mm-hmm.
And how valuable was that office manager? Did they want to keep that person, or had they, the company outgrown them? So that's one way you can do it. There's a couple things you want to work. There's always the HR issue, right? There's age. That's important. How old they are. Are you discriminating because of age?
Right.
The female, male versus, so there's all of that goes into it. So that you have to look at it from all of those things. It's not so simple. But I do believe that you pay people the value that they are to your company. I don't believe that you bring other people down or you don't give raises when people deserve it. And I know a lot of people in HR might not believe that, but I believe you pay what you want that person to receive because you want to keep them. And there are all different levels of producers in your company. And if you don't want to lose Joe because Joe is the high achiever, Joe is the one you're going to put in line for your supervisor position, then you make sure you pay Joe well and you make sure you have a good relationship with Joe. And that goes back to that talent development, leadership. How do I be a good leader? What are people looking for? I mean, all of those things matter. You want to keep them. If the office manager wasn't that much of value, then they could have let her go. But then what happened to that person is sounds like you didn't have the conversation with the office manager. You've outgrown your role, this company. I need her. We're going to pay her more. I just need to let you know that. I mean, you can give the $10,000 signing bonus too. Not heard too many people do that. So, but hey.
Well, and the fact of the matter is this particular person was uncomfortable having that conversation, and I hadn't gotten them to grow to that point yet. They thought that the customers were too used to dealing with this person. If they got rid of them, they were going to lose customers and all. But about 18 months later, that person did end up moving on, and the company didn't skip a beat. But also too, the person that I seeded into that company ended up moving on too, because it was a construction company and it was such a chaotic environment with a lot of cursing and and conflict and when this person called me and asked me for a reference for another job, I said, "Oh, are you leaving that company already?" And this person looked at me and said, "Yeah." She said, "I can't. I just every day there's so much cursing and there's so much just crudeness and it's the construction industry." She says, "I just can't handle it anymore. I just leave every day stressed out." So, if you're going to hold on to people, you have to create an environment where people aren't stressed out. They've got to feel like they've got some safety there.
Exactly. And you have to learn to have those conversations. And that's certainly something that I'm willing, someday we can talk about. If your people need to have training on how to have those difficult conversations out, they have to have them. They can't keep people in their company that are not moving it forward, or they need to be able to have conversations with them about their productivity, how they're getting along with others, because you're going to be miserable as an owner. And I'm assuming all your owners are on the line. You have to learn to have those conversations. I mean, that is a skill set that every CEO has to have. And it can't be, "You're a jerk, you're doing a stupid job." That is not how we handle it. That's not the world we live in. So.
And you're actually certified in a program called Crucial Conversations. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I'm able to do 1 day and 2 day training for groups within outside of an organization. So you have to buy the kit. It's a proprietary kit from them. And then I can do a 1 day to 2 day session. I can certainly do it in 1 day. It might be something that you want to do next time for your folks at your conference. You know, you have, now it's an all day thing, but it will give you the skill sets. And I've taken that and narrowed it down to being able to teach people a lot without a 1 day. But that is a crucial conversation. It is an excellent program. And I became a trainer because as an HR person, people send their people to us to resolve their conflict, right? So it was like the principal's office. We have a terrible reputation in HR because we're the principal, right, of the organization. So I need to teach my clients how to resolve their own conflict because I can't be there when that conflict happens. And so I'm not helping them. I'm not giving them a skill set. So I wanted to learn everything I could about conflict resolution to help them resolve their own talent. And everybody can learn it. I mean, John Maxwell says leadership's a learnable skill. So is conflict resolution. And a lot of it is looking at yourself first. You got to begin how you resolve, how you have resolved conflict in the past. And I realized for my own self, you know, my dad was pretty authoritative. This is the way it goes. You're doing it my way or the highway. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't work really in the workplace. So I've learned a lot, but that is a great tool to have. And it is in the book. It is one of the retention architecture. That and leadership and talent development is in the middle of that retention architecture. You have to have finding your talent and you have to have the law part of it. I mean, you've got to make sure you're following this new CARE Act. Your people have to know what to do in this. I mean, they have a law on what to do, and it applies to everybody with 50 employees or less. Those are the kind of things. I think you guys have someone who helps your folks with HR.
Yeah, we do. We have Frank Crum who handles our payroll and our workers' comp, and they've started taking on the liability insurance. But they have an HR department, and they have regular webinars, and they help out quite a bit with that stuff.
That's important.
Yeah, it's real important because I mean the government. You know, it's funny. You know, I don't have my Bible right here on my desk with me. I got a few other books, but it's actually across the room there in my bookcase. But you know, the Bible. I mean, it's a pretty thick book, and our government writes volumes and volumes and volumes and volumes of books, thicker than that every year, and it's just really hard to keep up. You know, with things like this new CARE Act, and you know, Frank Crum did do a webinar, and my wife and Renee and Ona, our two other admin bookkeepers at the office, watched that, and there's a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot on that for sure. So we're rounding off here to about 8:40 now, and I know we got a few people on the line. We don't have a ton of people on the line tonight. But I'm sure everybody that's on the line right now has had employee issues before or has some questions that they may want to ask. Tonight, guys, we're just doing Colleen and I on camera. You guys are on there. You can still go over to the chat window and go ahead and type in there a question if you want to. Because Colleen is, you know, she's an HR expert. She's got her new book, Retention. You actually have a copy of your book there?
Yes.
There it is. I love that cover. It's awesome. But she's a published author on retaining great talent in your company. She's also certified to do crucial conversations. She's John Maxwell trained, and she could certainly go ahead and if you guys have a question to tee up, she could certainly help you with that. Also too, Colleen, kind of give us your work history background. Tell us about, you know, because we've known each other for 30 years, and certainly we know each other on a personal level, and our kids grew up together and everything else. But tell people what your background was, that how did you get to this point? Give us your resume, so to speak.
Okay. So I went to UCF, the University of Central Florida, and I did get a degree. They didn't have human resources degrees then, so it's organizational communication, public speaking. I was always on the stage, theater, speaking, singing, and so it was a natural fit for me to speak in front of people, comfortable with that. So Al knows me from working with Dan and at Metro in Oviedo. So I led the drama team there, and the music, you know, we didn't have a band at that time, but it was a praise team. Then I moved up to Tallahassee, and I continued to do some HR work, continued to do drama inside of my church. And then when it was time to go back full time, I picked back up on HR. So I did some consulting in Orlando. I took some time off to raise my kids. And then for the last, 10 years or more, I have just done HR, trying to get as much knowledge as I could, just like we were talking about your people getting certifications. I have a couple certifications in that. I love learning. So if it means getting a certification, I'm going to do it. So I have a love of learning. And so I've taken all that to be able to help clients. So the background's HR, but it's that theater kind of side of it too. And obviously working in church ministry was a joy, and it was time to leave. I had to take it from there out. But I worked in a church that had 100 employees, and I was the HR director.
Yeah, and people don't realize there's HR issues and conflict and stuff like that, even in churches, and personalities and it's a trip. So Dan, our director of North American operations for Soft Wash Systems, was my pastor for almost 30 years. And you were at the church that we were at and served in ministry there. And we worked a lot together on that, which that was a great church. And you guys moved up to Tallahassee, and I think that was a big Baptist church you worked for, correct?
Yeah, it's a big church, about 1,800 people.
Wow. So, yeah. And, so churches are like businesses. They're just non-for-profit businesses. So you got to be careful in your hiring practices and everything else for that too, as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everything applies to us except we don't pay unemployment. So every law that's out there applies to church. We have to hire, we have to pay people right. We have to make sure they're not independent contractors when they're really employees. I mean, there's just so much to do. And I do want to put a little plug in for Dan. I did work for Dan, I guess 3 years or so. And Dan is a great leader. He was a great boss. I look back on the time working with Dan and our relationship with Dan and Beth. They're exceptional people. And I was so happy that he came to work with you, Al, because your people are blessed.
They are.
Yes.
We're very, very blessed to have Dan. Now, you just said something that is a hot topic in our industry, paying people as independent contractors when they're not.
Yeah.
Give me 5 to 8 minutes on that, because that's a hot button issue. I know exactly what I'm supposed to do legally on that, but sometimes when dad is telling all the kids the way they're supposed to do stuff, it's nice to hear it from a different voice. So talk about that independent contractor when you're not really.
Yes. So this came up, by the way, in the HR session I did at your conference, because I think one of the guys was letting somebody else use the truck on weekends. And so I don't know if he was an employee or not, but here's the thing. And this is why it's important, and you got to get it right. I just told this story today. I worked with an employment law attorney up here, and so I do training. I go in and tell them how to save their talent, and he helps them when they're in trouble at court. So, right? I mean, I keep them out, tell them how to not do it, and then he helps them when they're there. And so he got a barbershop that was, they owned like 10 barbershops up here in the Panhandle, and they were paying those employees as independent contractors.
Yeah.
And so they got a lawsuit and they lost everything, had to shut down. Now, why is that? Because they were using their equipment that, the barbershop was supplying. That's key. That's there's 5 things that wave the independent contractor flag.
The IRS says if you walk like a duck and you quack like a duck and you look like a duck, guess what? Right. You're a duck.
And why do they do that? Because they want that other half of the Social Security that somebody's not paying. And so they're going to come after you, Al Lockyer, because they want that money so they can use it how we don't always agree with it, but whatever, they want the money. So they're coming to you and they're going to make sure that they're actually independent contractors. because there's stuff that happens underneath the table. We're getting some cash and then I'm not claiming it, which, you know, is only going to come back to bite you. My husband is a musician and he trains people how to play guitar, and the people pay him in cash. We make sure we tell the government everything we make. You know why?
Right.
Because we have a higher calling. That's why. So that's what you need to do in business. What goes around comes around. So if they use your business, if they use your tools, your truck, if you're supplying everything for them, that's one red flag.
So that's one. Okay, so give us the other four.
The other two, now I'm gonna be challenged to do this.
That's okay. I'll fill in the blanks.
Good. I was like, I haven't done it in a while. My people all have employees.
Yes.
The other one is, do you direct the work? I mean, not the overall, like go out and get that done. But if you're managing every little detail of it, that's one. If they're
a subordinate, basically.
Right. If you're setting the hours, you know, if they're coming into your place.
If they clock in or clock out, that's number 3.
That's right. Okay. All right. Let me see. What's the other ones I'm thinking of? Go ahead, Al. You jump in because I'm just kind of gone blank.
Yeah. So if they're using your equipment or tools, if they're under your direct supervision, if they clock in, they clock out, if they report to your place of business.
Right. Yeah.
You know, if they actually report to your place of business. And then I believe the fifth one is, the fifth one's a mathematical equation. If they derive 60% or more than their employment from you. So like, let's say, this is really big, like in the carpentry industry. I'm an independent contractor. I do trim carpentry, okay? And I'm going to work for 5 different builders doing trim carpentry for them. And they call me whenever they need some trim carpentry done. Then I'm an independent contractor. But if I've got one that I work for, more than 60% of my work comes from that one company, then I'm not really an independent contractor. I work for that company. So they have that 60% rule. So those are things you got to watch out for. And they're trying to make sure that, yes, that they collect, you know, actually it's both parts, you know, it's the employees half of the Social Security, it's 14% of the paycheck. So when the government's talking about 14% of the paycheck, they want it. And they want to make sure everybody's on the radar, so they're collecting taxes and all. But it's really big in our business. You know, people even pay window cleaners or power washers or different people piecework. And they'll say, hey, you go do that job, I'll give you $150 for that job, regardless of what hours they did. You know, and then they end up with an overtime lawsuit later, because then when that relationship ends badly, and that person decides to call John Morgan, and John Morgan then sues you, you know, it's because you didn't keep track of the hours, you didn't pay them overtime for their overtime hours. Next thing you know, you've got a lawsuit. I do have, it's kind of a question here. Jim Prom's making a statement. He's talking about that at the conference at Soft Washapalooza, and your talk, you talked about to understand the cost, what it costs to actually replace a staff member. This rotating door, bringing people in, bringing them out, what the real cost is on your company for that. Spend a few minutes talking about that, because I think that goes back to something I said a little bit earlier, that the people that God blesses you with in your company are the people you're going to get. If you play this upgrade the employee game, the next one you get may be better in a few of the areas that the other one was weak at, but then they're weak in the stuff that the other one was good at. And you start just this rotating door, and that costs you a lot of money. Talk about that.
So I think I mentioned it to you all in the talk. I came up with a turnover calculator.
Yes.
And the reason I did that, because I went in to an organization and they weren't taking suggestions, and they had a 50% turnover. We're talking millions of dollars in a large organization that size that has 50% turnover.
Wow.
But until you actually do the number per position, you have no idea. And what those numbers involve for you all is the lack of productivity, the lack of having the salesperson who can go and find the work, the person who can do the work. And so what I do when I go inside is I say, here, give me your high turnover position. So in the case of up here, I did worked in an organization. It was a state agency where they would send out field, they called them field workers, or they would go to families' homes that maybe would not be able to adequately take care of their children. Yes. So they sent people out there, and they had a lot of training for that. I mean, it's a government agency, you can imagine.
Oh yeah.
They spent the majority of their time training them, finding them and training them.
Yeah, recruiting and training.
Yeah, and when I ran the numbers, it was like 87% of the person's salary. So it's different for every position. The front office person is not going to cost you as much in turnover as that salesperson is, or the person who's going out and doing the work. So just saying a general, oh, it's costing us this much. I mean, in that case, it was that person was only making $22,000. It was costing like $20,000 to replace them. So everything's different. So yes, if you can put into finding the right talent, that's key, interviewing right, asking the right questions. People often don't ask the right questions. And that silly question, your strength or your weaknesses, questions that are behavioral questions.
My favorite one I still ask people is, I'll say to people, tell me what I should know about you.
That's not a bad one.
It's not a bad question, but it's kind of like, what are people going to do? They're going to, well, I'm an alcoholic, and I'm probably, about 3 weeks into this gig, I'm probably going to start showing up late every day. They're not going to tell you that, but it's interesting to hear the answers they do.
Right, exactly. What you want to ask are the behavioral questions. Tell me about a time when you had conflict with someone in your office and how you handled it.
That's my number one question I ask. Tell me about the time where there's conflict in your office, how'd you handle it? Yeah.
Or your customer.
Yeah.
Tell me about a time that you overcame, blah, 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 blah. Behavioral questions tell you about how they did it. So key. So I see the question in front of me, the cost of replacing staff. So it's important that this is what I do. I show you how much it costs, and now I'm going to tell you how to fix it. But I don't know how to fix your problems in your organization unless I come in and do an organizational audit. You can tell me as the CEO what you think it's going on, but what does everybody else think that might be going on? And so that third person coming in and saying, hey, this is what I see is going on. I was able to tell them, you have 50% turnover. You have an authoritative style of government. Nobody wants to work here. And people don't want to be promoted because
they get stressed out and they leave.
Yeah. And so they just leave, and they don't tell you in an exit interview. People don't want to have that confrontation. They don't want that, to burn the bridge, let's say. So I don't even know why we do exit interviews, honestly. Got this thing about exit. Are really people going to tell you the truth? So maybe they do. I don't know. Same thing with performance evaluations. That's another talk for another day. I really think you should do retention talks instead, figuring out how you can keep them, and the ones you don't want to keep, get rid of them. That's my philosophy.
So I'll tell you a very, very common thing in the cleaning industry that happens is you'll have turnover on a technician position. It seems like about the time it's the middle of season, things are rocking and rolling. You thought you had a good guy out on that truck, and they flake out and they leave you. And then it hurts you because now you're back on the truck as the owner. Your productivity's hurt on the things that you should be doing, making it rain, keeping the business going. You're going to hire somebody else that may or may not work out over a 2 to 3 week period of time because you're now back out on the truck. You need to hire somebody, train them to take that person's place, and you lose 3, 4, 5 weeks of good productivity right in the middle of your season because things got upturned because of a key employee leaving. So speaking to that, what would be kind of your brainstorming on that?
The number one reason people leave their job is their boss.
Yes, always.
It's that, or it's conflict on the team. The pay and benefits is one of the top 5.
Right.
It's the boss. It's I don't have a place to grow. I got a better offer. But don't buy into, and this is what I teach my clients, don't buy into that, well, it's just the way it is. Nobody stays anywhere very long. And you're not going to do anything about retaining them. You're just going to say, well, that's just the way it is. No, every year, every month you can keep them. You've got better return on your investment. So are you having the conversation? If somebody gives you a their resignation letter, you should have known that was coming, because you're having ongoing conversations with them. I call them retention talks. You know, that 4 times a year, let's touch base. Let's see how they're doing. How am I doing? How's the job doing? What do you want to do? Is there any training that you want? What are your goals and aspirations? You should not be surprised. And people are, when we get back to that great economy, people are going to start stealing talent again.
Yep.
So
yeah, no, it'll happen. So if you're having conversations with that lead tech, you know, how are you liking the job? Is this a good fit for you? Are you, you know, how are things going at home? How are, you know, are you getting to recreate? What are your hobbies? You know, that's a good one. What are your hobbies? What are you doing on the weekend? Are you getting to recreate? Well, no, I've got another job. You know, as soon as I leave here, I go to another job. Whoa, you're not paying them enough. Okay. Or yeah, you know, I really like to go fishing. I never get a chance to go fishing anymore. Oh, really? Well, why is that? Well, you know, I got to watch the kids on the weekend because the wife then works. We're like 2 ships crossing in the night. You know, listen to people, find out where they're at. You know, one of the things that I am absolutely guilty of is paying my people way more than most people out there in the world would pay them. I overpay my people because I don't like turnover. And, you know, and there's 100 pennies in the dollar, and I still make a profit. And my companies are healthy, and we came into this whole thing with reserves with COVID-19, and we're doing very, very well. But I pay my people, I wouldn't say more than they're worth, because all of my employees, we've got very, very few hourly employees. Everybody in my companies makes a piece of the action. They get either profit sharing or bonuses or commissions. Everybody has a base hourly wage plus skin in the game. So when people aren't making what they want, I just kind of smile and say, it's more up to you than it is up to me. You can make whatever you want here. But it's holding on to people is so key. And I've also realized over the years that people could be killing it on money, you know, but if they're not happy, they'll leave you to make less money somewhere else to be happy, which for D's, for on the DISC assessment, I'm a D, doesn't make any sense to me. When somebody leaves to go work somewhere for less money because they're not happy working for you, but that falls under that where they're possibly not quitting their job, they're quitting their boss.
Right. Have the conversation with them. They might be leaving because there's more flexibility. Some things you can do something about, some things you can't, and you just got to let it go. Yeah. But don't be so rigid. And that's another thing we've learned from the younger generation, and that we're learning right now.
Yeah.
Working from home, and don't you think they're going to go back? Not your people, because they got to be out there working there. But don't you think people are going to go back into that office and say, you know, I just worked 3 weeks from home and it worked just well. Can we be more flexible about this? It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So the important thing is figure out how much it costs, and it will motivate you to have the conversation. And if your supervisors don't want to have the conversations, I call retention talks, then show them how much it costs. But your sharing of the profits is one of the reasons that Publix has people retire as millionaires.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, they never college education, which I don't believe you have to be successful, and they're retiring as millionaire. I know one personally from my Publix. I mean, so I'm telling you, they do. So anyway, we've chatted a lot about it, but this is the way I can help your folks. If there's sometime we want to do some conflict resolution training, we can do that. It doesn't have to be the crucial conversations side. We can do a one-day training. I can, if you feel like you're a CEO and maybe you've gotten some feedback that you need to look at yourself. Maybe you have some high turnover and you need some executive coaching for someone to be honest with you, but kind in how you are seen. There's definitely some one-on-one coaching that we can look at.
Yeah.
Jim, deal that I offered up to Sherm, I will certainly offer it up to your people, and I can send you the flyer on that. If they want to send a leader for 6 weeks for $297, we'll max it out at 10. It is a great way to talk about leadership that is honest. And so we're all a little rough around the edges,
Yeah.
And your people don't realize just their approach to it. So
well, even a lot of people in my network don't know the person I was 10, 15 years ago. I had to get a lot of leadership training to grow this type of business and to learn to let go. I'm totally a control freak, and to realize that, yeah, my ideas are the best ideas in the world, obviously. but if I'm going to assemble a team, I have to let their ideas fly too. And sometimes their ideas aren't my ideas, but their ideas are good enough. And if I ever want to retire, I've got to get comfortable with the fact that their ideas are good enough. And, and that's leadership. That's leadership is leadership. People think that leadership is, I got my hand on the yoke and I'm steering the boat and I'm totally in control. No, leadership is all about elevating other people around you for them to take control. So that's cool. So we got a few people that are interested in this. How do people reach out to you, Colene, and get in touch with you?
So you can do it through my website. You can go to the contact page and put in other, and I will respond to you. It's Colene Rogers, and it is spelled differently for all of you. It's on there, but it's Colene, and I got the book up.
There you go.
And you can do that. You can reach out to me directly at my email, which is Colene@ColeneRogers.com. We will be using chapters from the book. We'll get started right away. The book doesn't come out till May 15th.
So now I just realized I misspelled your name.
That's
so
okay.
E-N-E. See, my spell check came up E-E-N, so I thought I was safe because I live by spell check. So it's C-O-L-E-N-E Rogers.com.
That's right. Colene
And
Rogers.
that was still available. Look at how lucky you were.
I know. Well, nobody spells their name Colene like that, So yes, that was an honest mistake, Al. That you can't be talented at everything. So if spelling's not it's not your thing. So
yes.
But yes, we can do that group. That'll be a good time to do that, and it'll be a good time. And sometimes what we'll do is we'll spread people out in different groups because they might not want to speak while their CEO is there. So we can pluck them in different groups, or we can do it all together. You can do it by this kind of format. They can all be in one room. They can be at their home. So whatever works. So yeah, I'm excited about that. I think that people will like the book. We've gotten great endorsements from that. Ow. And so a lot of stories. I love telling stories. I love telling stories about things I have learned, crazy HR stories, things that have happened. So yeah, it's not just you got to do it this way. It's some examples.
So hold that book up again, real clear on the screen there, and tell everybody where they can get this book.
So you will be able to get it on Amazon. So it will be directly from Amazon. You can get it from us. Just, send me word at Colene@ColeneRogers.com. We are taking pre-orders right now. And so they will be sent directly to your home. So it's not up on Amazon yet because they're printing it as we speak. We're laying out those pages. There will be a landing page on the website just for the book itself. So we decided, we put off the launching of the book for a month because of all of this. It was supposed to be out on the 15th. But we didn't feel like it was a good time that we felt like we would get lost in all of this. But 2 days ago, I'm like, I've had enough. I'm ready to go back to work. Yep. I know America is ready to go back to work. We're putting this book out and we're going to do pre-orders. And if we need to start this by sending people PDFs, that's what we'll do. So yeah, that's kind of the deal.
Well, it is a very timely book right now. Even though unemployment is higher than it's ever been in history, when everything does start to reopen, a lot of those employees are going to get sucked back into the jobs they had. but 10 to 20% of them, some businesses are not going to survive this. Like Macy's is taking advantage of this to close a lot of stores. There's a lot of businesses out there that were teeter-tottering, that even though the economy was great, they weren't doing great, and they're just going to throw in the towel, and their employees are going to be available. And if you get this book, you start reading these, you start shaping and forming and changing your company to retain your employees, you will only be as good as the people that you put on your team, period. I mean, I look good just because I surround myself with good people. I hire way up. I pay them a ton of money so that they make me look good. And it makes my job easier so I can be the chief vision officer and just go out there and blaze the trail out in front of everybody, decide where we're going to go. And then my team just kills it out there. So, go to Colene Rogers, E-N-E Rogers. Go to our website, order that book, and it'll be a blessing for you guys. Also, too, if you guys would like to participate in some of her leadership training, she's got a 6-week program that she'll do with you guys for your company or for individual leaders, or she'll open it up to the Softwash Systems tribe if we want to get 5 or 6 people on with that. She'll certainly help you guys with that. She's a great friend. She's a great colleague. She's been an incredible example in her life. She's got words of wisdom to share with you guys when it comes to HR, because all of y'all are going to grow your businesses to where you're going to have 8, 10, 12, maybe 25 employees. And these are skills that you're going to need to develop. Colleen, I want to thank you so much for being with us tonight.
It was so much fun. I love spending time with you, Al, and I love your people. You have genuinely wonderful people in your network.
Well, thank you.